Obtaining 2 or more passports may be the easy part, but using them correctly at the border is the skill. Getting it wrong can mark you as an overstayer, strip the consular protection you thought you had, or trigger unintended obligations. So, how do you travel with a passport portfolio? This video explores that question. Let's start with perhaps the most important and basic rule. Enter and leave each country on the same passport. Do that, and every government sees a clean pair of records, an arrival and a matching departure. If you break that, on the other hand, and enter on one document and leave on another, that country's system reads you as a person who arrived in the jurisdiction but never left. That is exactly how even careful travellers land on an overstayer list, or worst, end up owing taxes they never thought they'd owe. Yossi Harpaz has documented that the share of states allowing dual citizenship climbed from about a quarter in 1990 to more than 80% by 2016. And most countries now permit some of it, which means that the share of dual, triple and quadruple citizens has increased dramatically. So, while the passport itself is just an object, what matters is the trail of records it leaves at every airline counter, immigration desk and exit gate. So, that rule explains how you should leave a country. But the first international record you create on any trip isn't at the border, it's at check-in. Airlines transmit what's called advanced passenger information to the government you're flying toward, and they pay fines for boarding anyone that jurisdiction's border agents will subsequently turn away. So they check the passport you hand over against a database called Thematic, which only reads the document in front of it and knows nothing about your travel history. That makes the rule at check-in simple. Give the airline the passport with which you'll enter your destination. If you're a citizen there, use that one. If you're not, use whichever document gets you in visa-free or fastest. Then, as the first rule dictated, leave on that same passport. A US and German citizen flying into Frankfurt checks in on her German passport, because that's what drops her into the EU lane on arrival. Going home is where most travellers slip, because of how a select few major countries record the moment you leave. In the United States, Canada and the United Kingdom, no officer stamps you out. There's no exit booth and no passport check on the way to the gate. Instead, the airline sends its passenger manifest to the border authority when the flight departs, and that data flows upstream to immigration. So your departure only gets recorded if the airline scans the correct passport when it issues your boarding pass. Miss that opportunity and your exit may never register, leaving you with a record that says you overstayed, similar to mistakes on the first rule. 2 habits can prevent this misstep entirely. First, skip mobile check-in when you leave these countries. Check in at the desk so a person scans the passport you entered and will exit on, and any error gets caught on the spot. Second, when you next enter that same country, carry a paper copy of the boarding pass you used to leave it last time. Frequent flyers throw boarding passes away, and for most trips that's fine, but exits from these 3 countries are the exception. There's a legal layer worth your attention here as well. US federal law requires American citizens to enter and leave the United States on their US passport. You cannot enter on the American one and exit on another nationality, and the airline is required to check, matching your passport against data already submitted before they print your boarding pass. Use a kiosk and you still pass through security where it's checked again. None of this is visible to you, but it runs on the back end. The Five Eyes partners, the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia and New Zealand, share this information extensively. Even Ireland, which doesn't hand traveller data directly to foreign governments, shares heavily with the US, the UK and the EU. So, while there may be no officer at the exit, the government still knows. In case you're wondering, the overstay penalty in most countries isn't a small fee you pay and forget. Some countries, like Argentina or the Philippines, simply charge you for an overstay and wave you through. The United States, on the other hand, does not. It bans you, usually for 5 or 10 years, depending on how long you overstayed. A second category of country refuses to recognize your other nationality at all, and there the cost of a mistake shifts from a missed lane to a lost right. The United States is the gentler version. It allows dual nationality, but it treats American citizens as Americans at the border, which is why that enter and exit on your US passport rule exists in the first place. The more significant damage can show up in consular assistance. US guidance warns that if you're also a local national, especially if you didn't arrive on your US passport, local authorities may refuse to recognize your American nationality and can bar US officials from even visiting you in detention. China is at the stricter end of the spectrum. Its nationality law does not recognize dual citizenship, so a Chinese national who settles abroad and takes another citizenship loses Chinese nationality automatically, with no notice or ceremony. Many keep a Chinese passport anyway. Britain's Foreign Office is blunt about the exposure. Enter China on a Chinese passport or identity card, and the British Embassy will not be able to help you. Let's look at the case of Xiao Chanhua, for example, a Chinese-born businessman who holds Canadian and Antigua and Barbuda citizenship. He vanished from a Hong Kong hotel in 2017 and resurfaced in mainland custody. Beijing declared him a Chinese national with no claim to foreign protection, barred Canadian diplomats from his trial, and handed him 13 years of imprisonment for holding another nationality. His other citizenships changed nothing. India's constitution also bans dual citizenship outright. The overseas citizen of India card that many people mistake for a substitute is a lifelong visa, not citizenship. Japan, in principle, makes you choose. Dual nationals are generally expected to pick one nationality, in most cases by age 20, though enforcement is light and many keep both. The working rule across all of these states is identical. Inside their borders, you are theirs. You use their document, and you expect no help from anyone else's embassy. This is exactly the kind of thing worth checking before you book. Not at the gate. Conscription, exit bans, and tax exposure all attached to citizenship, and the rules differ wildly from one country to the next. Inside IMI sovereigns, members get direct access to vetted immigration attorneys and tax advisors, so you can confirm exactly how a country treats its dual nationals before you go. A link and discount especially for you on YouTube are in the description. Now, nowhere is the which passport question changing faster right now than at Europe's borders. The European Union's Entry-Exit System, or EES, began rolling out in 2025 and reached full operation across Schengen area countries in 2026. It replaces passport stamps with digital entry and exit records for non-EU short-stay travellers, and it counts your days automatically against the limit of 90 days in any 180. In its first 4 months, it processed roughly 17 million travellers, flagged more than 4,000 overstayers, and recorded around 16,000 refusals of entry. The machines don't forget. For a dual national who holds nationality in the European Union, this settles the question. EES doesn't apply to citizens of EU member states, the European Economic Area, or Switzerland. So your EU passport keeps you out of the biometric file and off that rolling day count entirely, as long as you travel with and use it at the border. The same logic applies to ETIAS, the European Travel Information and Authorization System. The €20 pre-travel clearance due to start in 2026 and become mandatory by 2027. Hold citizenship in an EU country and you're exempt. Investment migrants face one more layer. IMI survey found that 1 in 3 investment migration executives expect ETIAS to become a tool for scrutinizing holders of citizenship by investment passports. And since December 2025, the EU's revised visa suspension mechanism treats the operation of a citizenship by investment program as its own independent ground for suspension. So if you acquired a passport partly for European visa-free access, which document you show and what attention it draws are no longer unimportant questions. Now, for some fringe edge cases that may apply to you and your family, conscription can surprise people. Somewhere between 60 and 85 countries conscript at least part of their population, and a second passport rarely cancels military duty. South Korea can call up dual national men, sometimes catching them on a visit, and requires them to renounce by a deadline or face liability into their late 30s. The singer Yoo Sung-jun took US citizenship to avoid service, and Seoul has blocked his return, even to see his family, for more than 20 years. Greece, Turkey, Israel, and Russia all assert service obligations on citizens abroad under various conditions, which can surprise you the moment you arrive or when you try to leave. Names are also a hazard. Marriage, translation, and legal changes leave many dual nationals with passports that don't spell their name correctly, and the airline's record has to match the document you present at check-in. Book under the name in the passport you'll travel on and carry the certificate that explains any gap. Britain now requires foreign visitors to carry an electronic travel authorization, and from 2026 airlines must deny boarding to anyone without one. A British or Irish dual national can't get one, so they travel on a British or Irish passport instead. These pre-clearance systems all assume you're a foreigner unless your passport says otherwise. A couple of mechanical habits round it out. Automated gates read one chip, so generally lawyers advise using the passport that matches the lane and keeping the spare ready. Also, keep every passport valid well ahead of expiry, since many countries demand 6 months beyond your stay, though the Schengen area asks for 3. And on overland and ferry crossings, where officers may look harder at prior stamps, carry proof that you left the previous country legally. Reduce all of it to a sequence you can run anywhere. If you're a citizen of the country you're entering, use that passport. And for the Schengen area, any EU nationality lifts you off the EES obligation. If the country claims you exclusively, use its document and expect no outside consular help. Everywhere else, choose the passport with the better access and enter and leave on that same one. Then hand the airline the document with which you'll cross the destination border and keep the rest close. Any spare passports are both your fallback and, if something goes wrong far from home, your way to reach help. The mobility a second citizenship gives you is real. It's also conditional. A passport in the drawer is worth exactly as much as the discipline with which you use it. Now that you know how to travel on multiple passports, the next question is whether identity plays into this question. In the video on your screen now, we explore how one can change their name on several passports in several jurisdictions legally. Take a look and subscribe and hit the bell so the next video analysing topics like this finds you.